Welcome to the Uncensored Self Podcast. I am your host, Ryan Gillen, and on this show, ambitious women learn how to create a life they're obsessed with, without the hustle, without the grind, without torturing ourselves, and without following anybody else's rules. This podcast is all about creating our own rules, owning our identity as creator, and hitting every single goal we set for ourselves. Together, we're redefining success on our terms and building lives that look as good as they feel. Let's dive in. All right, guys, welcome back to the Uncensored Self Podcast with Ryan Gillen. And today I am doing something that I've wanted to do for a very long time, which is actually coaching someone live on the show. So first of all, I want to say hi to Kaley. Kaley, thank you so much for being willing to do this.
Thank you for inviting me. I was telling you a little bit earlier that I had a nudge from my guides to say, hey, we're bringing you a mentor. And you said, hey, free mentoring. So
I just think that that's so fun. And what I had shared with Kaley before we hit record, this is something I've always wanted to do because I think that sometimes coaching and consulting and mentorship can feel like, oh, I really want that, but like, I don't know what that is, or I don't know what it feels like, or is this helpful in my scenario? And especially when it comes to the kind of work I do, which I kind of file under the transformational coaching umbrella, but it really is, it's mindset, it's energetic. We bring in, science and physics and all the different things, but it really is about at the end of the day, like, how do I show up as the best version of myself so that I can achieve all the things that I want to? And that's ultimately always my goal with my clients. So I had Kaley kind of fill out a form and be like, tell me what's going on in your world. So Kaley I'm going to have you kind of tell us a little bit of your story, but she's a full-time job. She's an artist. She's wildly creative and fun, but she's finding herself in this place with like, I have too many ideas and I feel overwhelmed and I don't even really know how to take action, how to pull the thread, where to start, but then also how do I allow the universe to guide me, right? Like you shared, and I'll let you tell your story that you've kind of gone through your awakening. You hear the messages, you know that you're being guided in some way, but it sounds like to me a little bit maybe we're having a hard time of letting go of control and letting the intuition really guide. So just want to give us just a quick background of kind of your story, your art, just kind of let everybody get a feel for who you are.
sure. Hi. So like you said, I am an artist and I have ADHD. So not very difficult to assume that I have problems focusing on one idea, and I've
Sure.
got so many of them. But I am 35. I have a 3-year-old who
Mm.
is hitting the teenager phase. So fun. But I am actually an artist and I went to school for textile and apparel design. I made wedding dresses for a while. I have gone through like every type of arts and crafts that you can imagine. And with my ADHD, I have collected all of the stuff you need for those particular crafts. And I'm really hoping to kind of get into more of like a art is my first thing that I do for
Mhm.
myself, but also I want to teach and mentor other people to find the medium that speaks to them as well.
That's so beautiful. So I always start with in any time I'm working with a client, and that we're just going to kind of dive right in here. And guys, this is completely unscripted, so this is going to be fun. But the first question I always ask people in any kind of engagement, Kaley, is like, what do you want? What's the vision, right? So you're like, okay, I'm an artist, but what does it look like when you picture the type of work you want to do in your head? What comes up?
So I think when I really kind of like sit into that in a meditative state, I think for me it is having a place that I can
Mm.
go and I have my many pieces of equipment I've collected over my 35 years, and it's a place that people can also come and join me, and they can come in and say, "Hey, I like art. I have no idea what kind of art I want to do. I get it." And me guiding them to say, okay, well, here's like a checklist of all of the different crafts we have here. Why don't you just start going through it, and then whichever one speaks to you, let's do that. And I will give you more tips and skills on how to build that craft for yourself. And then even at one point, having like a studio and a store. So it would be like kind of farm to table art, but it would be like studio to store. So something
Well,
like that.
and you said you want to teach, you want to lead classes, right? Like, is that part of the vision? So it's a space where people can come together, create art, discover who they are and what they want. You want to teach. So it's just a really, what I'm feeling is just like really beautiful collaborative space. When you think of that, like, what's the feeling? What's the feeling behind that space you just described?
I think it's just this collective embracing of loving art and
Mm.
having that be like how you connect to each other and the universe, and having a place that you can go that's not home or work. And
Mhm.
especially now, it feels like a lot of those third places are being taken away.
Sure.
Like some of my favorite crafting stores are now like going bankrupt. And in the Midwest, we have only really these chain
Yeah.
crafting stores. And without those, like, we're not going to be able to go in and physically look at the things that we want to buy to
Sure.
make things. And so we're going to have to really rely hard on the internet as well.
Sure. But let's go. I'm gonna drag you back to like the feeling. What's the feeling
Okay.
place in you for you when you are in this space and you can see it full of arts and crafts and the things you've collected and humans who are connecting with themselves and all of that? What's the feeling that it means to you?
I feel like it's just this grounding space,
Mm,
like home. It feels like home.
beautiful. I love that. So, what's the story about why you can't go do that today?
Money.
Got it. Yeah.
And I do, that is my, I think, biggest flaw is being someone who has ADHD. It's all or nothing because I'm like, I
Mhm.
want to go and I want to buy my space and I want to buy all of the materials and just have it. And like, I know that's not a successful way of doing things because if you have your store and you have everything, it's still not a guarantee that people are going to be like, oh, great, my place is here now. Let's all go and join and it's going to be successful immediately. So getting from I want to do it to I am doing it is the hard part.
Okay. But the first story is money, right? Like how am I gonna A, have the money to buy the space, B, keep the space alive, C, pay our bills, right? So the limiting of like how does that change? What else? What else comes up?
I think it's the security of, I have a toddler and I have a husband and, health insurance, also
Yep.
super important.
Yes.
Um, I feel like it's been this like infinity loop, right?
Yep.
Of I want to do this, but I can't because of
Mm,
the security, but I really want to do this, but I can't. So it's
mhm.
been this loop of keeping in that same cycle.
Yes. And I feel like we do this a lot as women. And I don't know if this is specific to women, right? But where we're like, well, I know what I want to do, but here's what I have to do to get what I want to do. And that can feel, how does that feel to you? Like, what do you feel when you think about that? Like, I can see it, I can feel it, I know what it feels like in my body. I don't have the money. How are we going to have health insurance? How do I make this sustainable? What's that feeling comes up for you, Kaley?
Have you seen the movie Anchorman? And he's like in
Belong
the
to
phone
belong to.
booth. I'm in a glass case of emotions. That's it.
That was fabulous. I feel like a lot of people feel that way. So yeah, it's all the emotions, right? It's frustration, it's overwhelm, it's is there like some disappointment in there and different things, of all of that. Okay. And I'm
Yeah.
going to explain kind of why I'm trying to pinpoint the feelings, right? Because if you guys have been following along, if you listen to the podcast, I talk about there's three things that create, right? Our thoughts, our feelings, and our action, you know? And so the thoughts are exactly what Kaley was just explaining. I think, all the thoughts she's having about, I want to do this thing and let me tell you about it and all of that. But then her feelings, our feelings are ultimately what create, right? That's what creates our vibration. So that feeling of frustration and overwhelm, right, is what's keeping you kind of on that hamster wheel. Like you explained it as an infinity loop. I explain it as a hamster wheel, right? Where it's like I see where I'm going, and some days I take action to it, and I have ideas, but I never get anywhere, right? But then we also know that the opposite side of that is this beautiful grounded feeling, right? This connected feeling that really really excites you. And so the most tactical way for us to how do we take an idea out of thin air and actually bring it to fruition like you talked about is first understanding that feeling space. So kudos to you, Kaley, for even being able to find that because a lot of people can't, right? They're just like, I don't like where I'm at, right? Like, and you don't seem to have that vibe, right? You're just like, I want more, and here's what my more looks like. And that's a really beautiful place to be, but sometimes it can also really keep us stuck because there's no reason to have to, right? You don't have to open this space. It doesn't have to pay your bills. It doesn't have to support your family. So it becomes easy to not prioritize it, right? When you think
Absolutely.
of, you have a tiny human who's 3. When you think of, your kiddo growing up and, your availability and where you are and what you're doing, like, can you see your life in running this type of business you just described?
Yeah, I do. And I feel like it would give me a lot more flexibility to
Mhm.
be with him too,
Yep.
because now I'm trying to balance my, you know, I like to call it a muggle job. I'm
Yes.
balancing my muggle job with like doing all of the spiritual and artistic things in addition to my family. So it's like this muggle side of things is pulling me away more from the things that I want to do and the people I want to be around.
Yeah. I love that example. I'm reading my son Harry Potter right now, so I giggle at the Muggle books. Like we've been waiting for him to be old enough to read them, and so we just finished the first one, and then we watched the first movie, and then we got snowed in and watched all the movies. Our goal was to read the books first and then watch the movies, but then snow happened, and so now I think we're on like three or four, and we haven't got there book wise yet. But I get that, and I want to point this out again to those of you listening, because many of you feel this way, right? There's two sides of you. There's the everyday side of you, the side that has done what you're supposed to do in life, right? Go to school, get a job, take care of our family, have babies, get married, yada yada yada, right? And then there's like if I had a magic wand, there's this side of things I would do. And what's really beautiful in this work is like you can do that. Like you can start this soar. It's completely available to you, but it starts with first of all knowing that. And it sounds like on your journey, like tell me where you're at with that concept, right? Of like you create your reality, right? Like I say that to you. What comes up for you?
So working on myself and through my shadow work, I have realized that I don't have to do everything like all in or nothing.
Yes.
And I think how that translate is the classes. So doing something that kind of bridges the gap between tarot, intuitive, and painting. And my thought was doing something like a sip and paint, but doing it like creative creation. So it's like
Mhm.
spirits drinking and then spirits woo woo.
I love that idea.
And
When you think
then,
of like hosting an event like that, like, cool, that sounds amazing. Let's go. Then what? What comes up?
yeah, it is I got to actually go and do it. I got to
Mm.
go and ask if I can go and have these kind of woo woo things, and putting myself out there of like, so I'm a tarot witch that likes to paint. Hello, conservative place that I live. Would you be willing to host it?
Yeah. Do you believe though that if you got really clear, like if you sat down and you said, okay, Ryan, my big vision is this store, but I want to start smaller scale, right? Is there a market here for this? Kind of, what I'm hearing you say is you want to get paid to do market research, right? Like I want to try and host these events, who's engaged, what's going on, all of those different things. Have you ever just sat down and like made a list? This is what this event looks like. Here's who I want to show up. Here's how I want to serve these people. This is what it looks like. Have you ever cast that vision before?
I have definitely started putting in like what would that look like? And I think I'm on the very beginning phases of that, but definitely I think, especially with our new moon, manifesting it probably couldn't hurt.
Right. Well, and that's always where I start with anything for everyone. Like, is it clear where you're going? Right? Because the universe wants to support you. I think that's kind of the beginning of this. We have to A, believe we can create, and then C, we have or B, we have to see it as, the universe, we live in a friendly universe, right? Like I always say, God always says yes. It's just most of the time we're screaming no and God's saying yes to our no's, right? So the first thing is really making that casting that vision, because what happens when we cast vision, and when I say cast vision, again, in this instance, is exactly what I just told Kaley. Like sometimes we get caught up in that, like cast vision, like, dude, make a list, right? Like just sit down with a journal. The first thing, find a place to host the event, right? Need materials for event. Here's the type of cocktails I would make. How many people do I want? Do I want to charge? What does that look like, right? How many people are in the room? Who are those people? Who do I want to surround myself with? But the more specific you can get with your list, right, the better. And I always follow kind of Abraham Hicks guidance on this, where like get as specific as you can, Kaley, until you feel resistant. So what I mean by that is you can say like, again, host event, spirits, tarot, whatever. And then when you get to find venue, and then the resistance comes up of, I live in this really conservative place. Who's going to let me do this? Right. We're going to back off that one a little bit, because what I want us to do is to get clear in what you want and then find the energy of that. And so when I say find the energy, I mean, find the feeling. And guys, I'm coaching Kaley. I'm coaching this. This is such a fun experiment. I'm like, this is actually going to make me a better coach. This is so fun. I gotta like, I feel like I'm giving you guys like the teleprompt of what's happening, while it's happening. But like it's like the voiceover, but in real time. I'll stop. I started my career in radio, guys. I can't help myself some days, but it's really about like getting the vision and casting that vision and then finding the feeling of like, okay, I'm in the space, the people are there, I can see them, they're having a great time, they're connecting, they're being creative, like, and then find the feeling place of that. And that feeling place, when we can find that feeling place, that is a feeling I want you to practice often. So, step one, cast our vision. Step two, find the feeling place of it. That's, guys, sometimes people say, see it as done. That's what we're doing here. Kaley's casting a vision and she's seeing it as done. She's seeing herself hosting this class, right? It's also why I was asking her, when you see yourself in this space, how does that feel, right? That is, find the feeling of what it feels like when it's done, because the active work of manifestation or creating something is finding that feeling place and practicing it, right? Because then, thank you, Kaley, for like being so honest and vulnerable. Because what she said is, it feels like this, but then when I think about it, I worry about money and I worry about security and I worry about, is it too conservative here? Are people going to buy this? Am I in the right place, right? So those are the limiting beliefs that you have, right? But you know what the feeling place is. So, and that's kind of the cocktail, if you will. Let's go along with the spirits example of intentional reality creation. I have feelings, I have vision, I know what it feels like. And then the work is to not let the limiting beliefs drive, right? So, what I would suggest in this moment, now that we know what we want, we know what it feels like, and then we're going to make a list of all the limiting beliefs that come up. And then we're going to go through them. And some of these, Kaley, I want to talk through with you live, but for those of you doing this exercise, because oftentimes we find that a lot of our stories are just stories. And one of them being, I live in this really conservative place. I'm going to pull this one apart, where there's not people who are into this, because my guess is that's not actually true. What is
You're
your,
right.
yeah, but
Definitely.
like worst case scenario, what happens? You put it out there and nobody shows up?
That's true. I already have the supply, so it's not like it's going to be a huge like
Yeah.
financial commitment to that.
Right. But like, what comes up for you when you're like, okay, cool, I have the supplies, I've got to go find a venue and put people in a room who would
Yeah,
come?
I think that's part of it, and I think the part also is kind of like this coming out as being
Mm,
witchy and woo-woo to my muggle people that I know.
sure.
And it has been great on being on TikTok and like having some people that I have not spoken to in like a decade be like, I didn't know that that was a thing for you, and it's so amazing and inspiring, and it doesn't feel real that that is happening, but I feel like it's hard to let go of that, you
Mm-hmm.
know, oh, they're gonna like tie me up on the bonfire and
Yeah.
and be like, nah, that's too much.
No, and that's again, for you, it's that, right? For the rest of us, it's, when we were ousted from the crowd, we could get eaten by a tiger, right? Like caveman days. Like we're physically wired for safety. I always say our brain's job is to keep us safe, which is why when you have an idea, the first thing that happens is, here's all the reasons why I can't have this, right? Here's all the reasons I can't do this, right? Which immediately, money, which we equate to security in our society, instantly makes us feel unsafe, right? Because the world has told us that safety and security is in benefits and a job. But what we're finding in this world, as time continues to unfold, is that, like, yes, jobs and benefits are fantastic, but are they actually as secure as we think they are? They're not, right? And I obviously don't wish ill will upon your job or any of those things, but it's the idea of the way that we have been told to create money and security is to go to college, get a job, climb the ladder, make sure there's a pension and there's all these other things. And what you're learning is there's this other side of me. And so what I have learned in my journey and what I will share with you, Kaley, is that, because I remember the first time like my mentor and I got into a conversation about what she did. And I was just like, I don't even know what that means, right? Like when she told me she helped people find the truth, like the name of her business is called The Truth Teachers. And I was like, that mean, right? Like the truth about what? And then 6 months later, when we met again and we started working together, it was the truth of how powerful we are and all these other things. And I remember thinking, like, how do you know? I asked her that question once. How do you know, like, when people are going to be okay with this and not? Like, how do you know? And she was like, because my assumption is that you wouldn't be here if you weren't. Right? Like if you are a vibrational match, like if somebody is a match to what you're creating, they wouldn't be here, right? Like they wouldn't come to mind. It wouldn't be like, I should reach out to that girl and invite her. That person would not come into your awareness if some part of them wasn't an energetic match to what you're creating. So even when you think of a venue, do you have a venue in mind, like a place you'd like to host this?
I do, and it's like has social in the name, so I feel like it's vibing, and it's kind of got like this like dark, moody vibe, but also kind of like it reminds me of Hogwarts. So that's why I love it.
What if instead of thinking, oh, I wonder if like nobody's going to be into that, it's like, well, that was the first idea, and trusting that like the reason that idea is there is because somebody there is open to this. Like when
I
you
think
think
you're
of
right.
what?
I think you're right for sure. It's the limiting beliefs of just being like, I'm giving myself the answer before I even ask it.
Mm-hmm. Right. So let's go back to the coming out piece because I think that's probably and this is why I love this work so much, right? We're like, and it's this, and it's this, and it's this, and it's like you really owning your identity, whether you want to use the word witch or spiritual or conscious or whatever feels good to you. It's like coming out in that way. What's your fear in that? Other than like, being burned at the stake.
Yeah, I think a lot of that feels like, and it's part of the spiritual journey, right? It's
Right.
the awakening to not letting what other people think of me like really affect me, and being a former people pleaser and
Mm,
extremely anxious and all of
sure.
these things that I have been working towards. This kind of feels like it's the final exam
Mm,
of that awakening of, okay, you said you've learned your lessons. Okay, go prove it to us.
But what does that look like coming out? Like just calling, like is the fear of like I'm even picking up the phone and calling and seeing if these people would be interested in hosting your event, or is it the fear of putting it out on social media and inviting people or reaching out to people? Like what part of it overwhelms you or scares you?
Probably all of it.
Yeah.
All of the, okay, yeah, here's my Facebook, event. Come and join me, like witchy creative, Richie crafts, we'll call it. And come and join me. I'm going to do tarot. If you want to do even an
Yeah.
additional reading, it'll be, an additional pricing. I think the other part of it too is being the people pleaser and giving up my talents for free for a super long time, and like
Mhm.
asking for that money of like, I know that this is a valuable thing and you need to pay me for my time and energy. That's also kind of a hard pill to swallow for me.
Sure. Let's talk about that. Why is getting paid for your gifts challenging?
I think it's feeling like people don't see the value in it that I do.
Mm.
And I think I shared with you, I was doing
Yeah.
wedding dresses for a
Yeah.
while, and I actually never charged anybody when I made them. That was like my wedding gift to my friends. And as it turned out, making a wedding dress is a lot of energy. And it kind of got to this point where it was like, why am I doing that? Like, I am giving up so much of my own time and energy, and a lot of times my health, because I get really sick after doing like these really long, like, times of trying to get this done in a short period of time. And it was like always signing myself up for things that I was giving way more of myself energetically than getting back. And it's finding that balance that has been so difficult for me.
Yeah. Talk to me about your money story. Growing up, what did money
Yeah.
look like, sound like? What did you learn about money?
Uh, I know, like, my parents have always done pretty well for themselves.
Okay.
They have always worked very, very hard.
Mhm.
And I haven't really had to think about it. And I think that definitely has been different in my adult life. I would see my parents go and buy things when they wanted to. They would want to do all these other things, and they would do it. And like, I think part of my brain, like, I knew that there was hard work associated with it, but I never really understood like how monetarily that connected to what they were doing.
Sure.
So getting into my adult life, I'm like, okay, I want to do all these things, but wow, money feels really different now than it did
Sure.
obviously when I was a kid.
Huh. Like, but what was like, did they talk? Like, what did they teach you about money? Did they teach you about money?
You need it to do the things that you want to do, and you have to work really hard for it. Yes,
Mhm.
but I'm not really sure that they ever were like, this is how you set up a business, and this is how you find out how much you should charge for your worthiness and what you're doing.
And what I meant more was like, our parents often teach us like it sounds like basically it was hard work, right? Like my parents' story was
Yeah.
hard work. My Dad drove a truck, right? He was always very blue collar. My mom had an office job, but she worked part-time so she could, be present for us because my dad worked, all the different things. So for me, there was always money, but there was a lot of hard work and sacrifice that went into money. Your eyes just got big when I said that. So is that why when it comes to charging for something that comes so easily to you, you're like, I can't charge for this because this isn't hard and this isn't a sacrifice?
Definitely. I definitely think that's true. And God, my
Yeah.
parents worked so hard. They had
Yeah.
several jobs. They
Yep.
they had their own business, two of them. They
Mhm.
flipped houses. They worked so hard all the time, and they always talk about the sacrifice that they made to make our life better. And I'm really butting up against that because I'm like, I don't want to work that hard, which is
Yeah.
why when you're like, you don't need to try that hard, I'm like, you don't? Tell me how.
Yeah. No, I think this is like the thread that's under all of that, right? Where it's like I have all of these ideas and this is where your brain gets distracted, right? You're over here thinking that the challenge is I got to figure it out. How am I going to do this and how am I going to do this? Where really what I'm kind of sensing is the underlying issue here is it's getting square with A, making money for something that comes easily for you. B, allowing it to be easy, right? Like, is it just that easy to send an email and be like, hey guys, is your space available on this date and time for me to host an event here and to throw together a Facebook invite? And all of a sudden I'm up and running. Like your subconscious is like, nah, it's got to be harder than that. Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely.
And then there's what I don't sense in you, and I'd be curious, like, is there it came up when you were talking about the wedding dress. Is there some sort of having to earn or prove your worth, your friendship, your love? Like, is that how you have learned over the years, Kaley, to get love and appreciation is by doing things for other people?
Oh, 100%. I am
Yeah.
an overgiver, an oversharer, and an
Sure.
oversender for everyone I love.
Perfect. Yes. And so there's a few things there. Like you've mentioned a couple times the word people pleaser. I'm going to encourage you to stop calling yourself a people pleaser. No more. Right? Because it's like an identity you're taking on. It's like, I'm a people pleaser. Right. And even though you're describing the past, remember your brain, your subconscious doesn't understand the difference between I was, I am, I'm going to be, right? So like, we're done with the people pleaser language, so you can maybe say things like, I used to overgive and now I find value exchange, right? So even finding other ways to do that, because what it also sounds like is, again, the reason why you're having a hard time charging is the money story, but then also this idea of, are people going to like me if I want to charge them for my gifts?
That tracks.
Yeah.
For
But
sure.
again, for most of us, it comes down to that. Those couple of, like, those few things. Like, I think we think that, yeah, it's something bigger than this, or it's something I have to go hunting for, or I have to go do all this like work and healing. And it's like, no, 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 no. We found exactly what it is, right? Like, you have discovered that your worthiness is in what you give. So, getting for what you give is a challenge, A. And then B, you've got this money story where it can't possibly be that easy to just have a vision and bring it to life.
That's, yeah,
Yeah.
nail on the head.
Yeah.
100%.
So, kind of how I will I'll guide you through this is again, first of all, getting clear on your vision, which it sounds like you are. And then as you go through those things, like listing that list of limiting beliefs and going through and deciding if it's true or not. All right. So let's start with I have to work hard for money. You have a job. It sounds like you enjoy it. You're good at it. Do you work hard?
No,
Yeah. But the
I'm good
paycheck
at it.
comes.
Yeah,
But the paycheck comes. And do you have any resistance to receiving that paycheck for the work you do?
absolutely not.
Right. So, like, you already have a prime example in your life where money comes to you easily for something you're good at. Where's the resistance of letting that spill over into building your own thing, whether it winds up being just a side hustle in a way you share gifts with the world or whatever the vision is, right? Like, what's the resistance there?
I think if we're going to get really deep down into it, probably believing that I'm worthy enough of that success and having it be easy and not having to work so hard at it to get it to where I want it.
Because I think you said you work in academia, right? So like you had to get a degree, and like there was a certain amount of there were steps you had to meet to be worthy of that job. So now that you're
Yeah,
worthy of it, you can take your easy paycheck because you've earned it. But do you not do the work every day? Like you were talking about, like you pull cards and you've done the shadow work and you meditate and you journal. Like, is that not you doing the work?
totally. It is. And the more I think about it, like I do put a lot of energy into like getting to the point where I feel comfortable with doing tarot for public consumption, which I'm
Sure.
now finally starting to do videos of that. And
Yay.
I get so many hits off of those, probably more than any of the other videos I do. So confirmation.
Right. And this is the work is continuing to find that confirmation, right? And this is for those of you listening to this, like, you're seeing it. Again, I get paid easily for the work that I've done, right? Because I went to school and I studied and I did it. Well, you've studied, you've been studying, right? You've been doing the work. You study again with art. You literally studied art. You have earned the right to be charged for sharing your art. And again, guys, I'm not saying that she has to earn it. What I'm giving her as examples for her brain to believe, right? Because our brain is, again, always looking for evidence, always looking for confirmation. So, what I'm trying to do is show Kaley all the ways where she has confirmation of her worthiness, her enoughness, her have earned. And again, it all is like continuing to kind of pull down that thread of it's that subconscious story of I have to make this harder than it is. Because if it were as simple as making a phone call, scheduling an event, and putting it out on social media, and people would pay to learn from me, then I would have to really face this new identity. I'm assuming your identity right now feels pretty safe. And an identity of like which Otero girl in the Midwest doesn't feel safe to you yet.
Not yet, but I'm getting there.
And like I said, the point of this work isn't for like me to wave a magic wand and all of a sudden you feel safe. It's for you to realize what's happening behind the scenes. Because when we start to pull things apart layer by layer, it's like, oh yeah, no, this is rooted in my like, I got to earn it story, or this is my fear of putting myself out there. But the way that I view those types of things when it comes to like the fear of putting yourself out there, the people that are ready for it will show up and the ones who won't. And the ones who are going to judge you are going to judge you anyway. Like we're
That is
so,
a fair, yeah, that's fair
you
assessment.
know, whether
Yeah.
you host an event or put it out on social media or create content or they hear it through the grapevine, you know what I'm saying? Like judgy people are judgy people and, you know, take that like that's a them thing, not a you thing.
Yeah, what's coming up for me right now with my guides is saying the Elise Myers, I think, had coined this phrase, if I'm too much, go find less.
I have it on a coffee
And
mug.
it has been this
Yeah.
like phrase that has been repeating in my head for so long because I was a person who continuously like people are like, that's just too much. Like you need
Mm.
to calm down, you need to chill out. And I'm like, have you met me? That is not my default function.
Right. But again, because I have the same story, right? Like most of I very vividly remember when I was, in middle school being told that, yeah, like I was too much. Boys don't like that. Like you're just that whole like bossy thing you got going on. Like boys aren't going to like that. Like that was my purpose in life at the age of 12 is to make sure boys liked me. Right.
They put leadership qualities on my report card.
Right. But you know what I'm saying? Like that's when we start to realize that. But the point I want to make with this is like both of us in our too muchness somehow found our way together from 5 states apart on the internet to have this conversation with all of our too muchness, which means I believe that when we have desires and things on our heart, that it is God, the universe, source, whatever you believe in, it's it's their way of guiding you, right? Like God isn't going to give you an idea or a nudge or something along those lines if it's not yours, right? Like and so it's really just understanding that and trusting that. Like these nudges, these ideas, they were given to me because I have what it takes to carry them out. Because I once heard somebody challenge it, like when the whole you can be whatever you want. It's like, well, not everybody gets to be an NFL basketball player. And I don't remember or NFL basketball player, NBA basketball player, NFL football player. I do know my sports guys, even though I really don't care. Somebody once said, like, if you don't have the skill set to be a professional basketball player, that desire is not on your heart, right? Like, it's not your gift. And somebody might say, well, like my kid, I'm like, when they're 7, they don't know, right? Of course, they want to be professional basketball players. But by the time they make it to high school, are they willing to put in the training to be a professional athlete? Most of them, the answer is going to be no, right? Because that's not their calling. So when we say you can be and do and have whatever you want, it's true, but God isn't going to give you desires that you don't have the skills and tools and gifts to fulfill. So this like I'm afraid of putting myself out there is kind of what it feels like the universe is nudging you to do. Put it out there, right?
Definitely.
I
Yeah.
could keep going for days. I want to hear like how are you feeling? Like what's kind of come up for you through this? I want to hear from you and how you're feeling at this point.
It I feel like this is so necessary because it's like I had all the pieces
Of
that
course.
I wanted to do. I just needed the nudge to be like, well, why can't you do it? Like,
Yeah.
that's ridiculous. You have everything you need to, the credibility. I have an art degree. I have the idea. I literally just need to, hit the send button and do it. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. That's so good. But what I really want to point out is like one of the things, because I had Kaley fill out a form before I got on here, and she's like, it's just like the overwhelm, right? Like I just feels too overwhelmed to start, which is probably your ADHD brain a little bit. But then also, right, like it always feels bigger than it is, right? So it's like your big vision is the store. And so yes, going and buying a store or renting a space feels too big. And so that's where like you went there on your own, but this is absolutely where I would guide someone is like, okay, well, where can you start today? I can start hosting classes. I can start selling tarot readings on TikTok, right? Like there's 10 different things you can do today to start sharing this gift with the world and then seeing where the nudges take you, right? Where the universe takes you, where the ideas come from, right? And it might stay in the vision of the store, but it may evolve into something different as you grow. But like the first step is always the first step. One of the things my mentor once said to me was, Ryan, how can you possibly know how to do something if you don't make a decision that it's done? And it kind of sounds like those are some of the things that are up for you, right? Like, of course, you don't know how to find the resources to do A, B, C, X, Y, Z because you haven't decided this is the way I want to go. I want to genuinely explore this because when you make that decision, ideas to host events, sell tarot readings on social media, do whatever else is going to come up for you, make fun little things and sell those, right? Like whatever that looks like and feels like for you, but taking action on those things. It's where we talk about like the creation process is thoughts, feelings, and actions. So we're going to get the thoughts on of like, hey, again, this is the thoughts are on point where this is where I'm going. I want to create a space. It's not fully clear. The feelings, we know what the feelings feel like, right? The feelings feel grounded. It feels creative. It feels expansive. It feels like you're using your gifts. Like I can feel all of that in you. So we want to practice that feeling and we want to take action from that feeling place. So before you push send on this email, you're going to send later today to this venue to see if you can host an event there. I want you to like spend some time visualizing the event. And when I say some time, a few minutes, 2 or 3 minutes, and then send the email with the trust of if this is the right step, the answer is yes. If this isn't my place, the answer is no. The universe will tell me.
I love that. I think, yeah, that I've just been like ruminating for too
Yep.
long.
Yep.
And going back to wedding dresses, the more you try on, the less likely you are to pick one. So that makes sense.
Absolutely. With anything, like I've been shopping for new jeans for months and like it's gotten to like I couldn't find jeans, right? Because exactly that, it was like, well, they didn't fit like those, but I didn't buy those because, whatever. And it's that same concept, right? Before you're like, fuck it, I'm just gonna wear sweatpants. So I'm not buying new
The
jeans
best
today.
answer to everything is sweatpants.
Beautiful. Do you feel complete? Do you feel like you got what you needed out of this experience today?
I think it was kind of pulling out the why am I not doing it? And it's because I do. I had all of the
Of
steps
course.
ready to go. I just had this fear of succeeding, if that makes any sense.
It absolutely does. Because again, when we succeed, this is my philosophy theory on the sphere of success, right? Because it's a very real thing. And I think it's because if you succeed in this new direction, you have to leave behind that old identity. And that is scary, not just because of the security of money and benefits. It's scary because your family, right? Like there's this small part of us is like, well, I don't want to vilify. Like it sounds like your parents are good people. Like you're like, I don't want to vilify my parents, right? And like I feel that same way too. But my mom and I talk about it openly. I'm like, Mom, if I ever talk about you on the internet, she's like, I know, like it's not. They were doing the best they could with what they had, right? Like there's nothing wrong with the way your parents taught you about money. They were doing the best they could with what they had. But as you continue to rise in consciousness, right, you continue to get new awarenesses, and so you get to build something new. And when you build new in this way, like then this trickles into your family, right? To your husband, to your kids, to like what that looks like. And so that's kind of what I think our fear of success is not about actually what comes with success. It's leaving behind the old identity. And unfortunately, when that happens, there's sometimes people that don't get to come with us, right? Like I've had plenty of friendships and things like that not come with me. The judgment of people, maybe you've known your whole life, maybe you're not super close to them, but they're your people, right? Like, will I be supported in this new journey and this new identity? I think is what most fear of success is rooted in. Does that feel true to you?
So much. And caveat, my parents are the best people ever. I love you if you are
I know.
listening to this.
I know. It's like, I tell my mom that I'm like, like, I love you so much. It just, there's nothing you did wrong. It's just, I can look back now and be like, oh, that's why I have that story, like you didn't know any better. There was nothing wrong with what you did. It was just the skills you had, like the tools that you had at the time. And what I say is like, now it's our responsibility, right? Like we have tools to change our lives, to change our clients' lives who we want to serve, to change our children's lives, our spouses' lives. Like there's so many lives we get to change now that we can make that choice. So thank you for doing this
Yeah,
with me. Thank you for being
you
open to it.
too.
But share your thoughts. You had a thought.
Oh yeah, I was just saying like I think they actually set me up to be pleasantly surprised that I don't have to work that hard. Like they worked so hard that
Yep.
I could like think that that's how I had to do it and then go, "Oh, I don't have to." Thanks, guys.
Yes. See, and that's such a beautiful perspective. Like, guys, that's such an example of perspectives everything, right? Like, again, perspectives are in your mind to do this business. It's this big, crazy, wild, overwhelming thing. And it's like, girlfriend, start with an event just to have fun. Because the more fun you have, the more the ideas are going to come in and the clarity is going to come in and the people you need to meet are going to show up. But I truly, truly believe that like these ideas, hosting in-person events in the Midwest where you would live, would not be on your heart if there was not a population of people wishing for a space like this. Like I once had somebody tell me this, like, whose prayer are you answering today? Right? Like somebody is like, gosh, I wish I had a place to go to be creative. Like I wish I could find weird, witchy friends to hang out with. Nobody gets me. Like there's somebody sitting across town from you thinking that, and you're over being like, nobody's going to come to my event. Right. But like the magic, the energy of you being like, no, I've decided I'm going to do this thing. And I don't care if my husband's the only person in the room. We're going to have so much fun and it's going to be amazing.
Love it.
That feel good?
Yes. I
Awesome.
like weird witchy friends too. I might use that.
You should have a weird witchy friends event. I love that so much. I would go. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you guys. Thanks for listening. I'm excited. And if you are listening to this and you're like, ooh, I want to do that, find me on social media. I'm at Ryan Gillen Official pretty much everywhere. Send me a DM and we can absolutely do this. So Kaley, thank you so much. Thank you for tuning in to the Uncensored Self podcast. If you're walking away with a new perspective, some fresh inspiration, or the push you needed to show up as your uncensored self, I'd love to hear about it. Share this episode, leave a review, and don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. Remember, success isn't about following somebody else's rules. It's about owning who you are, deciding what you want, and going after it unapologetically. Until next time, keep leading, keep creating, and stay uncensored.